3 seconds ago, your brain made a decision, but you won't know about it for another 4 seconds. Right now, as you're watching this, your brain is making choices, and you're just finding out about them after the fact. So here's the question that's been haunting neuroscientists for decades. Are you actually in control of your own mind? Or is free will just an illusion your brain creates to make you feel like you're the one driving? What I'm about to show you will fundamentally change how you see yourself, because the evidence is overwhelming, disturbing, and impossible to ignore. You might not be who you think you are. The year is 1983. Benjamin Libet, a neuroscientist at the University of California, is about to conduct an experiment that will shake the foundations of philosophy, neuroscience, and human identity itself. The setup seems simple. Participants sit in front of a clock with a dot rotating around it. They're told to flex their wrist whenever they feel like it, completely spontaneously, no planning. There's just one catch. They have to remember the exact position of the dot when they first felt the urge to move. At the same time, Libet is measuring their brain activity using an EEG, specifically looking for something called the readiness potential, a buildup of electrical activity in the motor cortex that happens before voluntary movements. Here's what Libet expected to find. First, you consciously decide to move. Then, your brain sends the signal to your muscles. Simple, right? That's how we all think it works. But that's not what happened. What Libet discovered was shocking. The readiness potential, the brain's preparation to move, began about 550 milliseconds before the actual movement. That's more than half a second. But here's the kicker. Participants reported becoming aware of their intention to move only 200 milliseconds before the actual movement. Do the math. That means the brain was preparing to act 350 milliseconds. Before the person consciously decided to act, your brain decided. Then you found out about it. Let that sink in. The electrical activity that caused your decision started before you consciously experienced the decision itself. It's like watching a movie where the subtitles appear before the actors speak. Except in this case, you are both the movie and the audience, and you're always running on a delay. Libet's findings were controversial, to say the least. Philosophers argued, neuroscientists debated, religious leaders panicked. Because if our conscious decisions are just echoes of unconscious neural processes, what does that mean for free will? What does that mean for moral responsibility? If you didn't really choose to commit a crime, can you be held accountable? But Libet himself offered a way out. He proposed that even though the brain initiates action unconsciously, consciousness still has a small window, about 100 to 200 milliseconds, to veto the action. He called it free won't. You might not choose to act, but you can choose not to act. Still, that's a pretty narrow window for something as grand as human free will. If Libet's experiment planted seeds of doubt, the split brain studies were a full-blown earthquake. In the 1960s, neurosurgeon Joseph Bogan began performing a radical procedure on patients with severe epilepsy, cutting the corpus callosum, the thick bundle of nerves connecting the left and right hemispheres of the brain. The idea was to prevent seizures from spreading between hemispheres. It worked. But it also revealed something astonishing about how the brain constructs the self. Enter Roger Sperry and Michael Gazzaniga, who began testing these split-brain patients to understand how the two hemispheres function independently. Here's the setup. The left hemisphere of your brain controls the right side of your body and is typically responsible for language. The right hemisphere controls the left side and is more visual spatial, but largely nonverbal. In one famous experiment, researchers showed a split-brain patient 2 different images simultaneously, one to each hemisphere. The left hemisphere saw a chicken claw. The right hemisphere saw a snowy scene. Then, the The patient was asked to point to a related image from a set of cards. With his right hand, controlled by the left hemisphere, he pointed to a chicken. With his left hand, controlled by the right hemisphere, he pointed to a shovel, perfect for clearing snow. So far, so good. But then came the critical question: why did you choose those? The patient's left hemisphere, the speaking half, could see what the right hand picked. So he answered confidently, "The chicken claw goes with the chicken." But remember, his left hemisphere never saw the snowy scene. It had no idea why the left hand picked a shovel. And yet, the patient didn't say, "I don't know." Instead, he instantly fabricated a reason. "And you need a shovel to clean out the chicken shed." He made up a story. On the spot. Without realizing it. Gazzaniga called this the interpreter, a function of the left hemisphere that constantly generates narratives to explain our behavior, even when it has no idea why we did something. Think about the implications. Your brain acts, then it invents a reason, and you believe that reason was why you acted in the first place. This isn't just happening in split-brain patients, it's happening in you, right now, every day. You feel angry, so you snap at someone. Then your brain says, "I snapped because they deserved it." But maybe you snapped because your blood sugar was low, or because you didn't sleep well, or because neurons in your amygdala fired in a particular pattern. The reason comes after, but it feels like it came before. Let's go deeper. In 2008, neuroscientist John Dylan Haynes took Libet's work to another level. Using functional MRI scans, which measure brain activity in real time, Haynes asked participants to choose between pressing a button with their left or right hand whenever they felt like it. The result? Haynes could predict their choice up to 10 seconds before they consciously made it. 10 seconds. That's not a delay. That's a chasm. By analyzing patterns of activity in the prefrontal and parietal cortex, Haynes could tell which button a person would press long before they decided to press it. Now, you might argue, okay, but those are just random button presses. What about real decisions? Complex ones? Fair point. So let's talk about shopping. In countless studies, researchers have shown that people are terrible at explaining why they chose one product over another. You might say you bought a certain brand of cereal because it's healthier. But eye-tracking studies show you probably grabbed it because it was at eye level, or because the packaging was red, or because you saw it in a commercial 3 days ago and don't even remember. Marketing companies know this. That's why they spend billions studying unconscious triggers, colors, fonts, shelf placement, music tempo in stores. Because your unconscious brain is making the choice. Your conscious brain is just along for the ride, narrating a story about why you're so rational. Even moral decisions aren't immune. In one disturbing experiment, researchers hypnotized participants to feel disgust when they heard a certain neutral word. Later, when asked to judge the morality of various scenarios, participants rated actions as more immoral if the scenario description contained that word, even though they had no conscious memory of the hypnosis. They felt disgusted, so they judged harshly. Then, they made up reasons. It's just wrong. It violates human dignity. But the real reason? A post-hypnotic suggestion. Your emotions drive your decisions. Your logic justifies them afterward. So, if we're not in control, who is? Neuroscientist David Eagleman describes the conscious mind as a CEO who thinks he's running the company, but is actually just reading the minutes of meetings that already happened. Your brain is a massive parallel processing machine with billions of neurons firing in patterns shaped by genetics, past experiences, neurochemistry, and environmental factors. Most of this happens below the surface. Consciousness is just a tiny spotlight scanning a vast dark ocean. But here's the weird part. The illusion of control might actually be useful. Psychologist Daniel Wegner proposed that the feeling of conscious will, the sense that I am causing my actions, is an emotion, not a fact. It's the brain's way of tagging certain actions as mine so you can learn from them, take responsibility, and build a coherent sense of self. Think of it like this. You're watching a movie of your life, but your brain edits the footage in real time to make it feel like you're the director. You're not. You're just the audience. But believing you're the director helps you navigate social life, make plans, and avoid repeating mistakes. In a sense, free will is a user interface. It's not gen sheer, it's functional. But here's where it gets ethically messy. If people don't have free will, can we hold them morally responsible? Should criminals be punished or just fixed like broken machines? Some neuroscientists and philosophers argue for a compatibilist view. Even if our actions are determined by prior causes, we can still be held responsible because punishment and reward change future behavior. In other words, responsibility doesn't require libertarian free will. It just requires that consequences matter. Others worry that disbelief in free will could lead to nihilism. Studies show that when people are primed to disbelieve in free will, they cheat more, help less, and behave more aggressively. The illusion might be necessary for a functioning society. But wait, remember Liebert's free won't? Even if your brain initiates actions unconsciously, you still have that narrow window to stop them. That's where consciousness might actually exert influence. Think about it. You feel the urge to eat a donut. Your brain has already started the process, but you stop yourself. You override the impulse. Isn't that free will? Maybe. But here's the problem. Where did the veto come from? If the decision to veto is just another brain process, another pattern of neurons firing based on prior causes, then the veto isn't free either. It's just one unconscious process overriding another. It's turtles all the way down. Unless consciousness itself is something more than brain activity. Unless there's a non-physical mind that can intervene in the physical brain. That's dualism, the idea that mind and brain are separate. But most neuroscientists reject dualism because there's no evidence for it. Every aspect of consciousness studied so far correlates with brain activity. Damage the brain, and you damage the mind. So we're stuck in a paradox. We feel free. The science says we're not. But if we're not free, why does it feel like we are? One answer: evolution. Organisms that feel like agents, that believe they're making choices, are better at surviving. They plan, they strategize, they hold themselves accountable. The illusion is adaptive. Another answer: emergence. Maybe free will isn't located in individual neurons, but in the higher order patterns they create. Just like temperature doesn't exist in a single molecule, but emerges from the motion of trillions of molecules, maybe free will emerges from the complexity of the brain. But that's still not libertarian free will. It's just a more sophisticated determinism. So, where does that leave us? Your brain is lying to you, not maliciously, but constantly. It creates the sensation that you, some unified conscious self, are in charge, but the evidence suggests that you are more like a passenger than a driver. The steering wheel you think you're holding, it's not connected to anything. And yet, here's the beautiful paradox. Even if free will is an illusion, it's an illusion you can't escape. You can't live as though you don't make choices. You'll still deliberate. You'll still feel regret. You'll still plan for the future. Maybe that's okay. Maybe the question isn't, do we have free will? But, what do we do with the feeling that we do? Because whether or not you're truly free, you're going to act as if you are. And in that space, between determinism and the feeling of freedom, you'll find something worth living for. The next time you make a decision, Ask yourself, did I choose this, or did my brain choose it for me? And then realize that question itself was determined too. Welcome to the illusion. It's the only reality you've got.